Well, it's time now for a business update, and we will cross to Davos now, where it's the last day of the World Economic Forum. France 24's Kate Moody is there. She brings us the latest. Kate?
Hi, Molly. While the week-long summit is coming to an end here in the Swiss Alps, some of the special displays and storefronts around town are already starting to be taken down. A panel has delivered its economic outlook for the year ahead. Christine Lagarde of the IMF saying there were mostly good signs for growth, but it would remain sluggish for several months to come. She also called on advanced economies to do more to help developing nations. Brexit was again high on the agenda. We heard very stern calls for a deal to be reached in the next 2 years. And of course, as the world's largest economy prepares for Donald Trump's inauguration, those issues of protectionism and free trade and globalization, which are so dear to the hearts of people who come to the World Economic Forum, those were again very high on the agenda. Now, to talk more about this week, I'm pleased to be joined by Margery Kraus, the founder and executive chairman of APCO Worldwide. Thanks so much for being with us. Tell us, how are some of the clients that you work with around the world, how are they dealing with the approaching administration in Washington?
Well, I think there's a lot of anxiety, and I think there's special anxiety this time. There's always, change just breeds anxiety. But given the president-elect and soon-to-be president's plans during the things he stated during the election campaign, I think people are very worried about the impact on business, trade policy, as you said, and tax and other things, and of course, border protection and a whole variety of issues. So I think it's just angst. People just want to know what's going to happen.
That is indeed a theme we've been hearing over and over again, the idea of clarity. We heard it with Brexit as well, of course. Now, if we look back at this week's World Economic Forum, the theme was responsive and responsible leadership, and it does seem to be coming at a rather timely moment in the world.
I think it's been a build-up to this moment, but I think the events of the last year have just made people realize how ill-equipped they are to deal with change. And I think it's come to a head for a lot of the people leading these companies that maybe they are not as prepared for what might be ahead. So I think the theme was really important.
What kind of things came out of the panels that you attended and participated in? What kind of issues that might help steer the business and political leaders who may have been attending or at least watching what was going on here?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that in the past, I think business has been very focused on their stakeholder, which has mostly been, their shareholders. And I think now there's across the board realization that this is a multi-stakeholder world. And some of the anger and dissatisfaction, I think, come from people who feel kind of left out. And for the last few years, business has been talking about engagement, and whether it's with employees or whether with external stakeholders. Now it's an imperative. Now it's not going to be possible to have permission to operate unless you can not only lead internally, but that you're a leader as a business with a purpose that's making a difference externally.
Now, we've just come out of a year of political backlash, really, of 2016 against in part, the establishment, the elite. That's a lot of the people who are gathered here. Do you think that this gathering at the World Economic Forum, does it still have a role to play in this changing world? Is it still relevant?
Well, I think just the fact that people are getting together to have this discussion, there are always going to be leaders and followers. And I think it's very reinforcing for the people who might not have this discussion to hear other people they respect to have those discussions. I think there's always two agendas here. I think one is what the agenda is that's stated, and then there's just a lot of business that gets done here because there are a lot of side meetings and people sharing perspectives, which sometimes reinforces the negative or reinforces the positive. So I think it is relevant for people to get together. I think the challenge is what people do with it when they go home. I think everybody leaves here with these reflections and thoughts, and then they go back and then they get busy. So I think the challenge is really to say that times are changing and things have to change.
See whether some of these perspectives, in fact, go out of the bubble of Davos that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Margery Kraus, thanks so much for joining us on France 24. We've just got time for a quick look at the markets. The European indexes are trading slightly up about midway through the session. Investors around the world, of course, will be tuning in to Donald Trump's inauguration speech as he begins to set the tone for the next 4 years. Many of the participants here in Davos will be tuning in as well, and you can as well on France 24, of course. That's all from this World Economic Forum. Back to you, Molly.
Kate Moody reporting there from Davos.